the Go Berserk with Email podcast with Navy nuclear engineer turned email software developer, Troy Broussard. So calm.
I'm pissed off, but I'm telling this because I am teaching you how to think differently and how to test differently.
So patient.
And Ben, that's put $500,000 into this company too, is being told that nobody can find the goddamn bug.
So charitable.
I'm going to start paying bounties every time somebody finds a bug. We're going to deduct $10 for that week.
So trusting.
Do not assume that anything works. Assume that nothing works.
And so sweet, it makes sugar taste just like salt.
I want to play into the sexiness of marketing automation, but I also want to slap the complexity of it.
The Go Berserk with Email podcast begins now.
Man, we're back. We're back. Troy, welcome back. I missed you, brother. I feel like I haven't seen you in a week. What's good?
Haven't gotten your Troy fix in a while, man.
I need it. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, today we get the extra special Troy that we're all always looking forward to, the guy in the intro. Is that right?
It gets some rants going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little bit cranky because my house damn near burnt down this week. So yeah, I'm a little cranky. It's the extra amped up version of Troy.
What happened?
Yeah.
Dude, what happened to your house?
No, dude, we had my brother-in-law had one of those electric skateboards and he was charging it, and it was some cheap Chinese battery technology or something that exploded, and it launched a massive fire. And you know, when you're in your garage, you want to have room for your car, so you kind of push everything into a pile on the edges and stuff, so everything's just right there. And yeah, it was crazy, man. It really was crazy. I burned the fingertips of all my fingers, but throwing a fire retardant blanket over it and stuff. But you know, I always wanted to be unidentifiable, Jonathan. So I think that the whole thing was a blessing in disguise.
Now we just got to pull your teeth.
Exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah, today is going to be fun, man. We're going to have a little fun, and I'm going to talk about deep thinking and the stupidity of this checklist mindset that we've turned into. When I say we, I'm really referring to entrepreneurs in general, especially newer entrepreneurs. I don't like the word newbie. Most entrepreneurs have had a lot of business experience in other avenues, and they've switched into becoming an entrepreneur. So I don't like that newbie term, but people that are new to being an entrepreneur, somebody that it's a new endeavor for them, a lot of times they're looking for this simple, give me a checklist mindset. And I tell people it's the same way about trading. Like when I'm teaching my options trading and people are like, well, just tell me exactly what to do in A, B, C. If I could do that, if I could make it into a system like that, then it could be automated. And that's what you have to understand, this basic premise. Okay. If something can be reduced down to a simple checklist that can, just do step A, step B, step C, then that is a process that could be automated. And if success could be automated, then checklists would be useful. And that's where I want to come to. So we got this after the podcast came back. This is actually feedback from the podcast. We had some guy that emailed Ben, some reply guy, always got to chime in with an opinion that nobody cares about. And it was funny, but he trashed the first episode, said it was all preamble and blah, blah, blah. And the podcast is just a bunch of bloating and da-da-da-da-da. He's incapable of deep thought. Right. And this is the problem with most entrepreneurs, is they're so focused on that. Just give me the snapshot of what I need. Just give me the 20-word version. They're not capable of going into the strategic mindset and thinking their way through things. And unfortunately, this has just really hampered the entrepreneurial spirit. There's so many people that have failed because they're looking for the little cheat sheets. They're looking for the little one-page summary PDF that's all they got to do. And life just ain't that friggin' simple. It's just not. It's all the nuance in between, all of the effort, all of the discipline, all of the consistency, all of the iterations. That's where success comes from. Having a general guidance, I'm not like totally slamming PDFs or checklists. There are useful reasons for them, but don't think that this can put your whole business into a simple checkbox. It's not my responsibility on this podcast to go shove the info into your head and organize it for you. And then what? Next, I'm supposed to show up with like a drill sergeant and a whistle and wake you up out of bed and say, time to get on that checklist that I give. Like, that's not my responsibility. It's your responsibility to learn how to learn. And the way that you do that is to approach content from a deep thinking perspective. Don't look at it as some trivial list of checklist items, but instead begin to learn how to associate a topic, an idea, deconstruct it yourself, and apply it to your own business. And that is a skill set that, to me, I look at as a basic skill set. And yet, I think that many entrepreneurs just don't have or haven't developed that skill set at all. And if you look at, like, one of the books that I reference all the time is Change or Die. The book's not even about marketing. It has nothing to do with marketing. It's about a cardiologist who is trying to prevent people from coming back because he operates on them once, and a few months or a couple of years, he's operating on them again. And so it's all about him developing different processes and things that he comes up with a medicine that they can take once a day. And if they just take that one pill a day, it'll reduce the likelihood of them coming back by like 70% or something. And then, crazy enough, people won't even take the one pill. And so he goes into this whole philosophy of deconstructing the human mind and behavior around this and how to affect change. So that book is a perfect illustration that you can't just look for a checklist. That book has nothing to do with marketing. And yet, for me, it is, if I was a professor of entrepreneurialism, it would be the very first book I would have people read, because it's literally about change or die. And it's really, I would subtitle it The Psychology of Change. It's about understanding what it takes to get somebody to change a behavior pattern. And that is everything that we do in email marketing and copywriting and marketing in general. That is everything that we're trying to do. We're trying to find that person that, wants to have a podcast, in your case, Jonathan, and, present the possibility of change, of them going from not having one to having one, and you being the solution that gets them there, right? It's all about change. And so I just don't have a lot of patience for people that want all the breadcrumbs handed to them and a map drawn to where to go and all of this, because you know what? They wouldn't do it anyway. They wouldn't do it anyway. The same people that want that checklist, they won't follow it anyway. And at the end, you cannot reduce something like success into a checklist formula. It just doesn't work.
I'm feeling a little self-conscious here because we pride ourselves in our company on checklists. Everything's an SOP, right? A process, a duplicatable process. But I think what you're saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, yes, on how you deliver things, that can be done. But on how you create the machine, you have to put different things together to bring what's unique or your angle or whatever is different about what you're offering, right?
Yeah, when it is procedural, that makes sense. Okay, so most people don't realize this, but pilots, commercial airline pilots, they have a checklist for everything that ever happens on a plane. They carry those big books of stuff with them, and they've got a page that they can flip to if there's a fire in the cabin, and it's a checklist of the procedures that they go through. So when you can reduce something down to procedure like that, then yes, checklists absolutely apply. But when you're teaching and it's learning on a generic topic and trying to break it down to a checklist, there's no way that's ever going to work, because your checklist from listening to a podcast is not going to be the same checklist as my checklist, right? Our takeaways are going to be different. And even the questions that we have to ask ourselves that come up in the process of consuming that content and learning are going to be different and shaped to not only our business type, our niche, but also our experience level. Our experience level will drive deeper questions over time that allow us to go deeper in our business, that as somebody new won't ask those same questions. So this whole process is really a process of learning. And, I just think that people are looking to be spoon-fed instead of putting in a little bit of effort and learning how to learn.
What is it? Dan Kennedy says everybody's walking around with their umbilical cords in their hands looking for somebody to plug into. So they're looking for that easiness, right?
Yeah, they're just looking for the scene out of the Matrix. You know, you lay down in the chair and they plug that cord into the back of your head and it's like, zoom, you're a jujitsu master. Yeah, great. You know, what people don't understand is even that concept is just, I mean, even roll it forward 500 years, it doesn't matter because it's not about the knowledge. That image of plugging in a tube into the back of your head and then all of a sudden you're an instant master at it. It's not just about knowledge. It's about the application of knowledge and the experience you derive through that. And that in physical form, like if we're talking about jujitsu or karate or something else, you would describe that as muscle memory. You don't get the muscle memory without doing the repetitions. You can have studied it. You could memorize every book that's ever been written on karate, and you would suck at doing karate because you don't have the muscle memory to perform those actions. So there's this dichotomy of learning where it's not just about the learning. The word has really kind of become bastardized where people think that it's just about consumption. Oh, I want to listen to everything at 2x speed. Oh, I want to do all this. I'm going to da-da-da-da-da-da. All you're doing is shoving more information. But if you're not taking the corollary actions and putting it into practice, then you never really develop any muscle memory or experience in how to do something where it becomes natural and you become effective at it.
So a couple things that this brings to mind, and I'm especially grateful for hanging out with guys like you and Ben. And it was that thinking because before I came into your world, I remember that I read all the business books. I read all the copywriting books, and I was only thinking in one dimension. And it wasn't until you guys said it was okay to read science and psychology and mystery and all this stuff and start letting all that coalesce in our minds so that we can think differently, that the world became a new place for me. And I think that's what's missing is people lack curiosity anymore. You get old and you stop being curious. You think there's just one way, or you know the way, and you're stuck. And so what I hear you talking about is kind of like a Carol Dweck thing, the growth mindset, the open mindset that allows things in and puts them together and spits them out in a new way.
Yeah, it's being able to analyze. I'll give you two examples. One is from James Patterson, and the other is from my 4-year-old son. He's 8 now, but it's a lesson I learned when he was 4. So let's start with my son, because that was the funnest one. I'm sitting there playing with him and I'm crumpling up some paper and I'm throwing it across the room and at the trash can. And of course, only 1 in 10 goes in or whatever. And then my son, he's like 4 at this time, and he finds that interesting and fun. So he starts, Dad, can I play? And he starts crumpling up paper and he throws it. And I watched the progression of what he did. First, he stood beside me and tried to throw it 12 feet across the floor. And he couldn't even get it close. He's like, okay, this isn't any fun. So then he started walking. He walked about halfway to the trash can and he started throwing it, and it still wasn't any fun. In the end, what he did is he walked over to the trash can, picked up the trash can, moved it to about a foot away from him where it was standing. And then he was hitting everything. He's like, look, Dad, I'm making it every time, right? And it sounds just funny. It sounds trite. It sounds trivial. But when you look at what could you do strategically in your business to quit chasing after and instead move the target, right? Quit chasing after this long distant target that's really hard to hit, and instead move the target where you can almost guarantee your success on it. And that was a really interesting takeaway. I did a lot of deep thought on that and I created a whole training program and things around it because it challenged me to think very differently. And this is from a mind of a 4-year-old, right? He already knew I can just move the target and that'll make things easier. So that was really one example. Another one is James Patterson. If you read his books, and by the way, he doesn't write most of them, right? So there's a whole nother lesson about his structure. He puts his name on it, and he has a bunch of ghostwriters that are trained up in his style, and he, pays them a subset of stuff, but he puts it in his name, and he's really a book aggregator in that sense. But if you look at his style, have you ever read a James Patterson book?
I don't know. He doesn't sound familiar. So what's a popular title?
A fiction writer. He's got so many titles I can't even think of them. There's like hundreds.
Okay. Fiction. That's why.
Yeah. And I don't read a lot of fiction, but I started listening to some of his on Audible and many years ago. And I had a very important takeaway from deconstructing the way he writes it. A typical book maybe has 20, 30 chapters, something like that. It's not anything out of the ordinary, but somewhere in that 20 to 30, 40 chapter range. A James Patterson novel will have sometimes 200 chapters. Sometimes his chapters are nothing more than a paragraph or two paragraphs, like, just the title page of the chapter. And when you flip it over, it's another title page to the next chapter. They're very short. They're very succinct. It's kind of like the way film style changed when 24 came out, when they just started doing these short little clips and action and moving. He writes in the way people watch films, and that is very short clips. Like if you go back and study the way movies were made in the 50s and 60s, back then, actors really had to act because their lines were like 3 minutes long or something, right? Now, the average line is like 12 seconds long, and that's all they've got to memorize, and they can just clip it in and go shoot another thing, and it all gets clipped together. If you really want to go deep on this, I'll tell you the exercise. I will give you the checklist item to do.
Here we go.
We'll give it to you. Here we go. Want to go deep on this? Go watch a 50s black and white movie, something you can watch on YouTube. Find a way to download it and bring it into a movie editor, whatever you use, iMovie or ScreenFlow or Camtasia, whatever, and put a clip, a cut point on every clip of the movie. So every time the scene changes and the camera angle changes, clip it, cut it, and do that for the whole film. Then go back and do the same thing with a contemporary film and watch the difference. It is insane. Your average clip time, it depends on the movie, but in the 50s, it's probably going to be somewhere between a minute and 3 minutes, your average clip time. And today it might be 6 seconds, 8 seconds, 12 seconds, right? So that's just one example of how to deconstruct something and how to break it down, create your own task for it, how to prove it to yourself, and in essence, create your own checklist and derive some experience in the process. So that's where I'm coming from, Jonathan. That's it, man.
You're so funny, man. I'm not giving you a checklist, but I'll close on a checklist.
There you go. I'm a contrarian. If not anything else, I'm always a contrarian. So, I could just hear the vibes of people whining in the background. I could just hear the little whiny stuff going on. Oh, yeah, it's checklist. So, I had to appease them.
There you go, man. What do you have coming up for us next time?
The next one is going to be fun. We're going to go into 2 metrics for a healthy entrepreneurial business. I like to really simplify things. And so I'm going to give you 2 metrics that will really kind of work with any type of entrepreneurial business that you're in and help you to see if you're on track or not.
Man, I can't wait. That is it for today. Another episode of Go Berserk with Email Show is in the can. We will be back in your earbuds next time.
To get a free Berserker Mail test drive with no credit card required, go to startmytestdrive.com. From there, you can play around inside the platform without pressure. Load up emails and campaigns to see how simple the interface is, and get comfy with everything before deciding to join. That's startmytestdrive.com.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.